Welcome to the IFTA Screen Discussion series, putting focus on each of the feature films submitted for this year's IFTA Awards. Every week, we're putting the spotlight on a variety of diverse feature films representing the best of Irish filmmaking, and today I'm delighted to be joined by filmmakers and cast of The Cellar. We're joined today by writer-director Brendan Muldowney, producers Richie Bulger and Connor Barry, and actors Alicia Cuthbert and Owen Mackin. So thanks very much, guys, for joining us today and chatting with us. I suppose it's only natural to firstly go to you, Brandon, as the writer-director. And I was wondering if you could firstly give us a little bit of background into the development of this film and its journey. I know it originated as a short film back in 2004.
Yeah, well, it was a short film called The 10 Steps. In fact, you can probably see up there. That's what you see, the 10 steps up there on one of the clapperboards. That's what it's on the top of my thing there. I actually have the clapperboard from The Cellar, but it was called The 10 Steps as we shot it. Yeah, it was a short film. We made it. Myself and Connor was producer on it. What can I say? It was, we were making a lot of shorts at the time, and it was just a sort of throwaway idea. It was like a simple little horror idea, and we made it, and it was the most successful short we ever made. It was it won a lot of prizes for us, but what really amazed us was how it transcended sort of age groups, and it was winning prizes at, say, the Sitges International Fantastic Film Festival, which is a hardcore horror audience, and also festivals like the New York International Children's Film Festival. So we sort of knew there was something special that hardcore horror fans could like it, and so could the younger audiences. And over the years, we kept coming back to trying to find an idea to how to expand it, I suppose, into a feature. And sorry, I'm a bit rusty on this because it's been a long time
It's been a
since
while.
we've done that. You know what I mean? And I used to
nearly 20 years
I was
ago.
able to steal it off. But anyway, so I'm literally having to remember it all for the first time again, nearly. So I think what happened was we tried many different versions over the years. 2007, I wrote a version. I think Jamie Hannigan took a shot at it, Connor, as well. And then it got into development with Screen Ireland, and it went through about 3 different versions. There was all sorts of mythologies. There was, druids, and Balor was in it at one stage. And finally, when I hit on the idea of bringing mathematics into it as sort of one of the core ideas, it started to take shape. I think really is the genesis of where I could say it started, how it evolved really. And yeah, and that's more or less it. Then once we got it into, once I nailed the mathematics and the other thing was it used to always start with the short film as a prologue, and I would then bring a new family in. That was problematic, I think. And the minute I hit on the idea that this should continue and it should be the mother desperately trying to find her daughter, so not just then was I working on the sort of backstory, the mythology of the world. It sort of gave me a strong character hook that then I think the script started to take shape and quite quickly came together then after that.
And I'm always kind of interested with like a horror short and then developing it into a feature film. Do you almost have to completely reinvent it rather than try and extend it in a sense? Like whenever you have this do you just take the core nucleus and then completely re-approach the project, I guess?
It's hard for me to say because I did so many versions of this script over the years and so many angles of how it would go, whether it was there was one version which was just an extended version of the short, so it was the short but it just was much longer. So how did we do it? No, I suppose we did reinvent it. We said we're not going to have the short as the prologue. We're not going to extend it. We're going to it was sort of the first act, and then everything that comes after that is invented. And there's it's a whole new, and I took that many different places. At one stage, it was a whole monster mashup at the end with like Hieronymus Bosch creatures walking around. It was too expensive. I can see Connor laughing because it was too expensive. But so what I can say to you is yeah, everything after the first act is reinvented, especially.
Brendan, do all I feel like I recall too when we first started speaking about the film that you also were explaining that the film had come off of the short, but you were like, let's not don't really go back and worry too much about the short because what we're doing is something really
Yeah,
completely
well,
different.
I tell you
I feel
something
like,
else.
or was it the opposite, or did you want me to? I can't
No,
remember. I
no.
feel like you did it. I feel
It's
like
not.
you,
It's nearly neither, Alicia. I just come. It's another bit has come back to me, which is this short had such a strong ending that when I was trying to end the feature with it, I was that was. But once I said no, that's not the ending. I really was struggling to say, well, look, if you've got that as the first act ending, what how are you going to end this? It has to
Mhm.
live up to that twist. And it was whenever I whenever the sort of Escher idea of the steps that just loop together. Spoiler alert! But the minute I came up with that, I suddenly went, "Oh, okay. There's an ending." I know what it was. I remember thinking, "Okay, how do I pull off that twist? I'll just pull it off again, but this time I'll show it because the 10 steps ends in darkness with counting." So, and I just thought, okay, and I did have an idea of at one stage the Kira character that Alicia plays sort of being chased by something, which is still in the script, and falling down the steps. And we, as the audience, suddenly realizing that, oh, the steps are extended, but we'll see them now. And in a way, that's survived. And that was in a very early draft, and that's survived. That's still in the film. Um, but going down into the void and finding all sorts of things just evolved from that. So but as I say, I still wanted a twist that I felt would stand up to the original short, and this idea of when Kira opens the door at the end and there's this sort of Escher world they're trapped in, sort of satisfied me, and I felt like, okay, it's strong enough to stand up to what comes at the start. So it is all, to answer a long way around to answer your question, it is all reinvented. Yeah, there's lots of new stuff.
Yeah. And Connor, can I ask you about your involvement and also just in terms of the different versions of it? Was there like whenever you were laughing there, is there an element of having to keep it within the confines of being able to stay within a budget whenever you sort of try and sample different things that might be more or less expensive?
Yeah, totally. It's the beautiful playoff of filmmaking, isn't it? Where constraints will hopefully lead to more creative choices as well. And I can see my producing partner beside me on the Zoom. I would feel like I could reach out and give him a push. But he one of the things that was very interesting for me was we shot this in COVID times, and so that added a whole that was far bigger than even the budget issues. And we were shooting in level 5, and that goes beyond even budget. That's into almost like apocalypse now territory. And what I always remember is just having to embrace that reality. And I think I'm just looking at all the people around, and it was like it was actually, I look back with such fondness of the time and the way we became together like a dysfunctional little family, and got to try to work our way through so many of the problems, which I think we did very successfully.
Yeah. And Richard, can I ask you, how exactly did you get involved, and when did you first see the script?
I got involved about a year before, maybe, Connor.
Yeah.
And so Connor had produced a course in Filmbase years and years ago, and it was how to produce a short film, and it was on the 10 steps. And then 10 years later, I don't know how it came up in conversation, but we were talking about it, and Connor was like, I think we've got a script. I think we're going to try and make it a feature film. And we'd worked together on Owen's film that Owen directed here, The Young Men, and we became very good friends. And we decided to give it a go. And then COVID happened, and it was a whole crazy world. But yeah, the first time I read the script, it was about a year beforehand, and I always loved the short, and I've always thought of Brendan one of the best filmmakers in Ireland. So I was like, yeah, let's try and make it.
And then I'm kind of curious just to bring in Alicia and Owen, just in terms of how you sort of Well, whenever you guys first saw the script and what it was about the script that sort of jumped out at you, if you have any, I know there's a bit of recalling to it, but is there anything that you particularly remember jumping out at you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always very cautious when sort of tackling the genre of horror because I feel like, as a fan of the genre, I'm very particular. And I remember clearly getting the script and reading through it and thinking, wow, this is an interesting take on a horror in the sense that, the mathematical concept was so exciting and interesting to me. And as it kept kind of going through without obviously giving too much away, the ending sort of knocked me off my chair because I thought, there's no way. This is incredible. So I really thought the script was so clever, so smart, so well written. And then obviously had a great conversation with Brendan, and because of COVID, obviously, and me being in California and him in Ireland, I mean, we had to have a lot of conversations sort of over the phone. And but I really felt like I understood instantly, and that's a credit, I think, to the writing about sort of how clear and concise the script and the idea was. And for me too, I was completely drawn to it from a mother's standpoint because I had a daughter. My son wasn't born at the time, but at the time I was, pretty fresh new mom of a daughter, and it was singing to me in that way as well, because all of these fears, it was tapping into all of these sort of motherly fears that you have. And so I was really, I think, compelled and drawn to it for that reason as well. And I thought, wow, what a great sort of incredible moment to read a script that, felt so much like where I'm at in my life. And I can bring so much to this because of my, experience now. Whereas I think if I would have seen this script 4 years prior, I would have been like, this is a really great script, but I just had so much more in me to give as far as feeling like I was connected to that, to Kira in that way as a mother. So yeah, I was really excited. And I mean, the thought of being able to shoot a film during that time, like Connor said, it just was like, there wasn't even a question. I was like, the fact that I get to work in 2020, I was like, okay, yeah, let's do this. So it was a little bit of a miracle film in so many ways. And again, like Connor said, going back and thinking on the experience, you would imagine it would be sort of hectic and crazy, but it actually is got such a sweet spot in my heart.
Okay.
And I think because of the obstacles that we were up against made the situation so much more special, because all the little petty things sort of meant nothing in the grand scheme of things. It was really about, like, let's just get these days done so that we can complete this amazing movie. And so yeah, it just became such a tight-knit group. And yeah, and Brendan was so amazing. I think, it's such a credit to him because his writing is so brilliant, but also to be able to be such a great director at the same time. I mean, sometimes you don't always get the collaboration be so, in sync. And it was, Brendan is really great at both, which is rare. So yeah, it was a special film to make for sure. But there was so many things about the script I love. Sorry, I did a whole thing there. Sorry.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you. And Owen.
To be honest with you, I'd wanted to work with Brendan for years, and I think I probably poked Connor a few times and asked him when, because I worked with Brendan and Connor on Savage years ago. But I think Brendan's a film. And I love Pilgrimage and I love Love Eternal. So the minute Richie and Connor came to me and said they were producing a film with Brendan, and then there was, they wanted me to read the script and have a look at it, I was just like, yeah, I'd love to work. So I just basically wanted to work with Brendan because I think he's. And the script, as Alicia was saying, I echo every single thing that she says. Apart from the math thing, when I read the math, I was like, I'm not doing this. This is. No, it was the script. It's genuinely true with horror stuff. It's important to kind of have characters that are really well drawn on the page, and that's what Brendan had. He had a really interesting relationship between myself and Alicia's character, and for the whole family dynamics, which is the kind of the crux of having a really good horror film, that you care about these people. And I thought it was really interesting because having a really strong female protagonist in that way also kind of changed how I saw the film as well. And I thought it was a really fascinating story that he created, and it also scared me because I read it at nighttime because it was like I think Richie said that, or Connor might have said it, like read it at nighttime.
Yeah.
Or I think maybe was it you, Brendan? Did you give out to me because you told me if I didn't read it at night or something like that? So,
Well, that sounds like a Richie thing.
Yeah. I think I might have been.
So I read it at nighttime, and I was really terrified by it, because also even philosophically I found the whole concept terrifying, and the writing was really succinct, and I was like, oh god, this is gonna be awful to make, because I'm gonna be really scared making this, and not being weird, but this is gonna be like, this is gonna be difficult. But I really wanted to do it because of that, because it thought it was gonna be a really great film, and I want to work with everyone here, and I want to work with Alicia, and it was a really great dynamic. Great, and as Connor was saying, making this film in COVID, it was really important that you kind of had a really good kind of support network, and you're working with people that you trusted and you kind of cared about and you believed in, and it made it super fun. And then Brendan went and made a really cool movie.
And you've sort of touched on something there that I did want to ask you about, just in terms of as actors, whether you do read a horror script and actually think this is going to be scary and spooky to deal with. And I'm sure I'll come back to it in a moment, but I'm sure the whole introduction via COVID and isolation and everything, I'm sure it really was the perfect setup to get into the mood for it. But Brendan, I just wanted to sort of ask you there, because I know in a previous interview you mentioned about how the movie doesn't really hold back in terms of getting straight into the thick of it and having you on edge from the get-go, but because, as the guys have said, like it's very clear that there's a very well constructed idea behind the origin of this entity. Does that give you the confidence or like the wherewithal that you can just jump straight into it because you just have that whole world created?
I don't know. I had written a script before this, which has gone nowhere. As in, I sent it to Connor, and he went, "No." That's as far as that script went. But it was a script where something happened, and I wanted it to snowball. That was a type of thriller like Blue Ruin, if you know that film. So I just wanted that sort of thriller that never lets up. And I think my writing was like that at the time. And I wrote a version before this, the one I told you about with the monster mashup, and it was set over one night. It was with young kids. It was more of a sort of young adult kids, horror, but it had a real, as they call it, a breakneck pace, and it was just never let up. So actually what you're seeing is a sort of Tarkovsky version of that. It's very slow compared to it. And in fairness, I did try and get even quicker into it, but somewhere along the line in the development, we sort of added some backstory of moving in. I probably would have liked to have started it like the short film starts, nearly bang, on someone's babysitting, like a prologue.
And can I ask you, just in terms of, obviously for this film in particular, the location plays such a massive part in it. Can you tell me a little bit about what you had in mind for it, and then coming across the property? And okay, you're already laughing, but coming across,
Rich,
producers will take that question.
Rich will take that question.
Have I touched the nerve?
No, it's not. It was wonderful. It was great, and everyone was great.
No, I mean,
we're still all friends.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, in terms of the house was such a major part of the production, such a major aspect of it, and we spent a good 6 months to find it. Yeah, Rich. Hello. Sorry, I've lost. What was the question again?
I actually don't think I asked that question anyway, so it's okay. We can move on. Yeah. No, I was asking about the location.
Okay, it's great.
Yeah, location was great.
Okay, moving swiftly along.
And it is not haunted.
No, Brendan. No, Nathan. Yeah, let's keep going.
I have heard about this. Who is it that is in the belief that the house was indeed haunted? Is it Owen? Would you like to give us your hot take on that?
I don't
You're
think
gonna
I'm
have to
allowed.
cut this out. You're gonna have to cut this out, Nathan.
Okay, well, sidebar.
Okay.
The house,
So,
house is not
The house
haunted.
is not haunted.
It was just
not haunted.
we were shooting most of the film at night. Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
We were all scared. That was it.
yeah.
We were method, right? We were method.
Yeah.
That's it. We were all
Exactly.
method. Yeah, all
We were-
five of us
Really
here.
were in a
were-
headspace of, you know,
Fear in
The
terms
fear.
of COVID and
Yeah,
all the
through
rest.
COVID. Yeah.
the isolation of it all.
Yeah, nothing to do with that.
Perfect. Okay. Well, let's on the topic of the isolation aspect. I suppose, Alicia, it must have been a pretty unusual introduction to coming into Ireland. I've heard of you speaking before about being sort of bundled into the back of a van and getting taken out to the middle of nowhere, where you were then sent to isolate for 2 weeks before meeting anyone. Sounds like the perfect way to start this whole process.
It was actually. It was the best 2 weeks of my life. It was. I had to do, like, I literally had like Richie and Connor like bringing me groceries. I got to just be in peace for 2 weeks by myself in this beautiful cabin. I mean, it literally was like, I don't know if you are familiar with the film The Holiday, where Cameron Diaz and Kate Winslet swap places, and Cameron Diaz ends up, the Hollywood actress ends up in this like, cute little quaint English town. I mean, it was like literally my Irish version of it. The only thing missing was Jude Law knocking on the door. Well, I did have Owen, I guess. Owen. But yeah, it was no, in all seriousness, it was, you would think it was like, Roscommon, Castle, like, I know for people who are from Ireland, they go sort of, it's the middle of nowhere, but for me, it was so beautiful. I laugh about like the fact that I now have experienced every single type of rain you can imagine. Like I was like, I didn't know there was this many varieties of rain. So that was beautiful. But no, it was yeah, it was lovely. It was lovely. I would do it all over again. I mean, who gets to spend 2 weeks prior to a film just isolated and able to focus on the script and with peace,
yeah.
and quiet, and it was great. I was making my own little fires, and it was like a dream. It really was. It was great.
God, that sounds lovely.
It was.
And Owen, can I ask you, was it a strange experience for you coming back and not being able to sort of do your usual routine a bit whenever you're back home?
Well, I honestly, the same as Alicia, I thought I was in a rom-com because I was in the middle of the Irish countryside next to Alicia. So I was like, I'm clearly a rom-com and weirdly enough, myself, Brendan, and Alicia were all like in these cottages next to each other, but we weren't able to see each other. So I remember we were like talking to Brendan about the script on Zoom, and through the wall. It's a very strange experience, because I think Alicia, yeah, really bad Wi-Fi. I remember, Alicia, you hadn't even met Brendan, and he was literally next door, and you still didn't get to meet him because of the isolation.
It was crazy. It was, yeah, it's true.
But there was these cute little kind of forest walks. Wasn't there like a Winnie the Pooh forest walk, literally called the Winnie the Pooh forest walk through the forest around the estate?
Christopher Robin.
So it was a very cute little place, to be honest. I had a great time. It was like a little 2-week holiday.
Oh, and it's making me realize we need to make a movie about this. This is you and I.
know.
We
have another movie. We need to make another movie. Yeah. This is exactly what's going to happen.
Brendan, how are you for writing a movie where no one dies?
Yeah. I'll co-write it with you, Owen.
Okay.
And then I suppose getting into the actual production phase then. So when was it that you were able to meet? I guess we'll start there. When did you actually get to come face to face? And what was involved? Did you get an opportunity to have some time before filming, or did you have to get straight into it?
No,
It was pretty.
I was in prep, so I was meeting people face to face. So, but you know, supposedly everybody was living and isolating anyway in their own way. So whoever I was meeting, we were in a bubble, I suppose. And I was able to, you know, meet Owen and Alicia outside. You know, so we did meet at the door outside Alicia's house, or went for a walk or something like that. But yeah, no, mainly I do remember seeing Alicia. Were you going for a run or something? And you came up and we were all on our tech recce. It was sort of odd because none of the crew knew you. And they were talking to me and they were all looking over like, who the hell?
Like, who is this girl?
Yeah. It was very fast though as well. Like, you know, 2 weeks isn't a lot of time, and costuming and yeah. So, but we were able to, yeah, we were able to talk, and we did the only thing is, you know, like normally a table read is where, you know, everyone comes together, and we did that over Zoom. You know, it's an interesting experience, more so when people's Wi-Fi starts cutting out, and but I do always remember Aaron Monaghan.
I
who
was
played-
just thinking that he had it all.
yeah,
He was, he
and
had
he
it all
amazed
memorized.
Alicia because he knew all his lines. There was
Oh.
yeah,
I remember getting off the table read Zoom and, you know, getting in touch with Brendan right away, and I was like, okay, wow, Aaron is like fire, like amazing. I was like, this guy had, and I mean, Dr. Fernay has a lot of technical, you know, technical stuff. So I was like blown away where he was like full on, like he was in a scene. I mean, his Zoom turned into the actual scene. I was like, this is crazy. This guy is on another level. He's amazing. And even working with him was like, it was like all our stuff was in one day, packed into one day at a different location. And gosh, we just had a great time filming that stuff. That was really fun stuff to get into.
yeah. I think I remember Andrew Bennett giving out in the best possible way. He's friends with Aaron, but he was, you know, he's making me look bad.
Yeah. Andrew played the detective, right? Yeah. They were friends. That's right. Yeah.
I must say that I did get a bit of a chuckle. I rewatched The Cellar last night, and I did get a bit of a chuckle seeing Aaron having the last time seen him as the man whose mammy was hit by a bread in the Banshees, and I was like, wow, this character is a far cry from the character.
Yeah.
Of
You know
The
what's
Cellar.
so funny? When I watched the Banshees, I literally was laughing so hard because my stuff with him, he was so smart and intelligent, and he was like this like comedy, like it was so funny to me. I was like for like with all those other layers to it, I was like, this is amazing. So he goes, wait, that's impossible. That's how my dad died. Or when it was like, I was like, this guy, he's so good. I think he's so great.
We've come a long way, us Irish, you know. We're more sophisticated these days. But Connor and Richie, I'm interested to know just in terms of for you guys as the producers, with all the red tape around COVID and everything, what was imperative to you guys? And we don't have to go into the COVID protocol, but more so in terms of making sure that I'm sure it was so important that once you got rolling, that there wasn't any hiccups to stop you from being able to get through this together, like and have to put it on ice.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like talking about like another age. It just feels so long ago on one level. You know, no one was vaccinated. It was a very different thing. So, you know, health was obviously the biggest priority, and trying to be very respectful of that. And then after that, you know, Screen Ireland were quite magnificent in terms of trying to deal with the regulations and figure everything out from first principles, because that's the point about it, is that there were no rules at the time. It was literally unfolding as we were doing the film. And in that period of level 5 was the time when everything shut down, when the rules were being made to try and work through. So it was like, and that, again, I'll say it again. I just thought that the way the creative forward momentum of the project kept moving despite all these constraints and kind of found its way to other places. It's one of the proudest things I've ever been involved with.
And it was just like, and it was just and the crew were just so amazing and so respectful of the rules and regulations. Everybody was, because
Yeah.
as I said, nobody was vaccinated.
Yeah.
We all didn't really know what this thing was, and every time we got through a round of testing and nobody had gotten COVID, it felt like the biggest result ever, And
That's right. I
very
forgot about
fortunate
that. Yeah.
throughout the whole production, only one person. When you consider how much testing we were doing and how many people were involved in making the film, only one person unfortunately got it, but it was a real credit to everybody involved, just their level of dedication and hard work, because we were in Roscommon. A lot of crew weren't from Roscommon, coming from Dublin, leaving their families, taking that risk. And we were shooting close to Christmas, and there was all that concern, and people didn't know what this thing was, so
And I just,
very
I
fortunate.
just like to add another thing is that we shot at pretty much the most dangerous, weirdest time in terms of the COVID lockdown, and the film premiered at South by Southwest, just as that was the first festival that was opening up and was both in person, and it was like, oh my God, we could see everybody there at the premiere, and people could move around, and then it was in the cinemas in Latin America and all the rest. So it was it was just such a weird metamorphosis of the film, going from being completely shut to being normal around everybody at screenings,
Yeah. And I can imagine that, like, it seems to be a common theme, and I'm sure at the time all you were thinking about was not having to do a film and with all of this going on ever again. But I'm sure now with a bit of space, you kind of look back, and a shared experience of coming through the trenches together in that capacity, I feel like it becomes all the more significant and memorable. And how funny it is that it just completely switches whenever you have enough time to distance, and we're all out now and we can have our lives again. It's special, and being selected for South by Southwest must have been incredible.
Yeah. I'll let Brendan and Alicia and Owen talk about that, because I was so proud of them.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was just, it was just really nice to have like a festival of that size, and at the right time, I suppose, as you say, as festivals were just opening up. Yeah, it was great. We had a great time there. What goes on in Texas stays in Texas. I'm just talking about barbecue.
How was your experience, Owen and Alicia?
I mean, I love Southwest. I think it's a wonderful festival. I mean, it's a very filmmaker festival, but I think to have it screening there in the horror section of that festival, it's a really prestigious place for it to be. And the actual screening itself, I hadn't seen the movie until the screening, on purpose, and I was blown away by it. And I just thought that the sound design and the score and everything was fantastic. But it was, I think, as Richie and Connor were saying, it was really wonderful that they could manage to pull this film together, which the two of them deserve a lot of plaudits for, because they did pull this film together during COVID, when it was almost impossible to make a film. Traveling to Ireland, because at the time, there wasn't a lot of people who actually wanted to travel during COVID, because no one was happening in the first 6 months. So it was a real big leap of faith for them to do it. So for it to premiere then in South by Southwest the way that it did, I think was a really deserving, and it was a really wonderful experience for us all to be able to do that together after making a film in such a, like, even Brendan was doing his editing on Zoom, I think, a lot of the time.
All of it. I didn't sit in the room with the editor once.
Wow.
Yeah. So to be able to then actually have the film premiere in South by and be able to all be together and experience that and be at a film festival for the first time, I think, in so long, was really, it was really very.
Yeah. No, I echo all of that. I mean, it was really special to be together. And I had never had any film get into South by Southwest, so that was really amazing. So I was really excited. I had just had my son, so I was a little bit I could have been a little better off. I was like, 6 weeks post. I think Brendan and Owen had to like watch
Right.
me like breast pump, and like it was a rough go for me. But I didn't want to miss it. I wanted to be there. And despite that, and because I just I have such fondness for the film, and I was really excited for everybody, and just to be able to go and speak on it, and sort of show it off, and the screening went really well, and yeah, it was great. It was so great.
And Brendan, you just touched upon it there, but obviously, and Owen mentioned as well, like of course with any horror or suspense or thriller, like the post, the sound, the editing makes such a massive part. Like you could do everything, and if they don't go right, then it's kind of in vain. Can you tell me a little bit about that process, and particularly doing it remotely? I don't know. Some people have said that they've enjoyed it even more doing it that way, but how did you find it?
The editing remotely, it's not great. We had to use something called Evercast, which stops the lag, so that I can watch it in sync. And actually was quite good. I could see also the timeline of the Avid, which I like looking at as we're cutting. I think it was around about the time I had to do some ADR remotely, but you have to do that anyway a lot of the time. No, it was around about the time vaccinations came in. So I was able to go to Belgium and and finish. I was able to go for the color grading, and I was able to go for the sound, the final sound mixing. So yeah, that was fine. So the process, actually, we're just lucky. As I say, the vaccinations came in right at the last minute, because it would have been very difficult to sound mix it and color grade it remotely. We looked into it because we didn't know whether we'd be vaccinated, and you get into things like, are the monitors going to be calibrated between the two different countries, and then as it turned out that where they were color grading wouldn't speak to egg because they had a different software that was out of date, and they weren't going to upgrade it. So I would have had to go. So I suppose I'm just talking about, I was able to do it in person. And then the composer, Stephen McKeown, I've worked with on all my films. And actually the sound designer, Quentin and Philippe, the re-recording mixer, we've worked with before in Pilgrimage as well. So yeah, it was great. I had the same team. I knew them all really well. So it was great. And
Richard and Connor, could I just ask you, in terms of, it's obviously an Irish-Belgian co-production. Was the post-production all done in Belgium in that regard then, as part of the co-production? And was that something that was arranged prior to the pandemic, or was it a deal that was made during the pandemic? And how exactly do you navigate that whenever there's restrictions in place and stuff? Was that a bit up in the air in terms of if there was a case you physically needed to go or whatever, and you might have been restricted?
Well, the Irish-Belgian co-production model. This is the kind of the train spotting section of the conversation. But the Irish-Belgian co-production model works very well in terms of the split of post-production with shooting predominantly in Ireland, and then bringing some crew over to the shoot. And we've done it before, and Rich really embraced it as well. I think that was his first Belgian co-pro. And the thing about it really is that, it kind of adds another perspective sometimes. And like Brendan had said, the post-production with Belgium was something that we were well used to, the same people. And so it was an idea that we had. It was always a part of our structure and always part of our plan. Obviously, COVID really impacted, especially in terms of bringing the crew over. Possible, that really, kind of affected things. And post-production could have suffered more, but we all made clever decisions, I think. And Brendan, I don't know, somehow adapted again, and I think it worked out very well as well. Rich, you might have anything else to say? I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's the first film I ever did that we didn't really go into a post house that often. Like Connor and I went over to Belgium right at the end, we watched one rough cut of the film in a post house, but it was just the two of us in a cinema room with all sorts of terms and conditions where we could go in. So it was really watching it at home, like the cut as it went along, and that was kind of quite strange. And there wasn't the usual like, oh, we'll just drop in on a Wednesday, see how Brent's doing, and have a chat. Like it was all done over the phone and links and all the rest. So that was quite unusual. And definitely, I think at times, Brandon, I think would kind of say at times technically that's kind of a bit tricky and challenging, because there's no replacement for being in the room with an actual person, being able to talk through it all. But yeah, no, it was challenging. But like everything with making films during COVID, you just figure it out, and you just hope for the best a lot of the time.
Yeah. And I suppose lastly, one of the obviously I recall that the news of South by Southwest came quite swiftly afterwards, came that Shudder had acquired it, which I feel must have been a great vote of confidence to have like a bespoke horror platform, want to have it on its offer to subscribers. What was that like, Brendan, to have that badge of approval, I guess?
Great. Shudder were a great partner to have. They all came to South by Southwest themselves, and RLJE, which is a sister company that released it theatrically in the States. They all came to South by Southwest. They were fully behind it. And the lads can talk a bit more about the deal, because Emily Gatto was sort of involved in that one. And yeah, they were great supporters.
Yeah, I think they're such a brilliant platform for horror, and they've just been doing so many amazing films kind of over the last 2 or 3 years, and we were just really fortunate to get the film to them, and they really loved it. And they've done a really great job with the film, and we're really happy to work with them, and we'd love to work with them again.
I was just going to say as well that kind of Shudder, it's a label as well, almost like when I was growing up, it was Mute Records or whatever, and you kind of a bit nerdy about things like labels, and to have the Shudder label on our horror was pretty great. And it kind of, one of the things is obviously directors and cast, that as well, horror is designed to be consumed theatrically as well. So we had the streamer presence, which was very important. And also what happened is theatrically it ended up doing very well in Latin America and other countries as well. And so I think that's very important to show to us all, like after what we put everybody through by making the film in COVID and all the rest, that it kind of got out there, it was seen, and it was consumed in the way that's supposed to be, and that makes me very proud of everyone as well.
Yeah, it isn't like Shudder like the John Cusack of distribution labels for horror. Yeah. It's
a nice metaphor.
But no, but as Connor was saying, because it wasn't it was released theatrically. It got a huge theatrical release around Mexico and Latin America, and it did really, really well. And I like you realize how wide do, but yeah, that's something that kind of everyone should know, is how well the movie did. Yeah, especially when a lot of places weren't open until recently. So
yeah.
Well, guys, listen, it's been lovely chatting to y'all, and thank you very much for taking the time to give us a bit more of an insight, and thank you for getting up so early, Alicia. Yeah. Hopefully I'll see you all soon.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks,
buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Alicia.